Dealing with death of a loved one is considered one of the most stressful life events. The psychological consequences of loss vary in each and every individual based on the characteristic of the survivor, the nature of the relationship with the lost one, and also the nature of death, whether it was sudden death or it was due to a long illness. The nature of death has an impact on how one will live, depending on the nature of death, whether it was sudden death or it was due to suffering a long illness. This also adds influence to the patterns of grief. Psychological effects of loss. The psychological effects of loss may include depression and even anxiety. Due to losing a loved one may suffer mood disturbance and they may be depressed most time of the day, resulting in them feeling sad and even feeling empty. They may lose interest or receive no pleasure in what they used to love before, resulting in feeling of worthlessness. They may suffer significant weight loss due to decreased appetite or even be obese to increase appetite. They may suffer insomnia or even hypersomnia. Insomnia is lack of sleep, whereby hypersomnia is excessive sleeping. They may suffer psychomotor agitation, which is inability to stand still. They may have decreased energy. They may suffer from tiredness or even fatigue. They may suffer from sense of worthlessness or even have excessive or even inappropriate guilt, where they say, I should have done that to save my cousin's life, I should have done this to save my parents' life. They may have diminished ability to think or even concentrate. They may have recurrent thoughts of death or even suicidal thoughts as a result of losing someone they love. Everyone grieves in a different way, but there are some common emotional transition that are referred to as stages of grief. Stages of grief are basically grieving steps that make dealing with losing someone a little bit easier. Following properly the stages of grief does not always make grieving easier, but sometimes it makes it manageable. Stages of grief include shock or denial. Stage 2 is anger. Stage 3 is bargaining. Stage 4 is sadness, and stage 5 is acceptance. As grieving is different from for everyone, one may experience all these stages within a short space of time, whereby someone may experience the stages in a long period of time. Grieving is different for each and every person. Stage 1 is shock or denial. This is the first stage of grief. This is the hardest stage of grief. This is where nothing makes sense. This is where everything is overwhelming. This is where everything is blurry. One of the most expected first emotion include one being in shock or being in a feeling of disbelief. And there will be a feeling of numbness to those that know the person personally, thinking or saying things like what they are being told is not true, or there has been some kind of a mistake. Pretending that something so horrible is not true sometimes allows one a little bit more time to transition into this unwelcome reality, especially if the loss is unexpected. The first stage of grief allows one deal with loss and survive the loss. This is where the world becomes more meaningless. This is where life becomes overwhelming, whereby nothing makes sense. At this stage, one is at a state of shock, at a state of denial. Their coping mechanism is denial. They keep telling themselves that this is just a dream, my parent is still alive. Denial and shock allows one to cope and make survival possible. Denial helps one to pace the feelings of grief. That's why people say there is grace in denial. As the person begin to accept the loss and deal with the loss, they start to ask themselves questions. This is where healing progress. This is where healing process begins. They are becoming stronger and the denial is beginning to fade. As you proceed, the feelings of denial are beginning to fade and the real feelings are beginning to surface. Stage 2 is anger. The feeling of anger emerges. The widow can be angry at a lot of things. from the spouse for leaving them, to the bearer of the bad news, to the doctor for being unable to save their loved one. A normal response following a death of a loved one is anger. It's perfectly understandable to try to find out whose fault it was and whether it could have been prevented. Being angry is a stage whereby it is necessary in healing process, and one must be willing to feel the anger, even though it may seem endless. The more one feels anger, the more one heals. Anger has more than one emotion, and in order to feel those other emotions, one must be willing to feel the anger. The truth is, anger has no limit. It can go to an extent of pushing other people away. Underneath the anger is pain, whereby one may feel deserted or even abandoned. The truth is, people fear angry people, so they may hold themselves back, leading to the survivor feeling pain of abandonment. The anger is strength. It can be an anchor giving temporary structure to the loss. We usually know more about suppressing the anger than feeling it. Anger is another indication of the intensity of the love one has for their lost one. Stage 3 is bargaining. This is where one begins to negotiate the return of their loved one, no matter how unrealistic their thoughts are. For example, a widow who just lost a spouse may beg God or any other high power for a little bit more time with their spouse, or also promising something in return. This is also a stage whereby it is also referred to as the if only stage. For example, one may think that if only the doctor had done something differently, their parent could have survived. This is where one may begin to promise to do anything if their loved one is spared a little bit more time on this earth. One will promise not to be angry at them ever again. The bargaining may be in a form of temporary truth, like one devoting to help other people for the rest of their life if their loved one is brought to life. Stage 4 is sadness. Sadness is a step is one experiences after the full weight of reality sinks in. They begin to look at the situation differently, and the fact that they have to go through life without the loved one. The feeling of sadness and the feeling guilty emerges. This is the most depressive stage of loss, and it's going to feel like it's taking forever. This often leads to depression, and depression after loss is seen as a natural thing. So depression after loss is not natural. Seek help if you feel depressed after a loss. This is a stage of whereby one feel like I have to be fixed. This is a stage whereby it is not easy to snap out of. 5 is acceptance. At some point, one is going to accept their loss and begin to adjust to the new chapter in their life. Memories are going to start making them smile instead of breaking them into tears. They might even experience a sense of peace that comes with acceptance. I find acceptance may be more good days than bad days. They may begin to live again and enjoy life without feeling like they are betraying the loved one by doing so. We can never really replace the person that we lost, but we can make new connection. We can make new meaningful relationship. We can make new meaningful conversation with other people instead of feeling like we are betraying the lost loved one. Instead of denying their feelings, they start to listen to their needs. They move on, they change, they grow, they evolve. They start to reach more to other people and become more involved in other people's life. They begin to invest in other people's life. They invest in friendship. They begin to invest in relationship with other people. If they are widows, they begin to live again. They accept their loss. Those were the 5 stages of grief. As I said before, grief is different for everyone. No need to pressurize other people's grieving process. Allow everyone to heal at their own time, at their own pace. Thank you for watching this video. Thank you for watching this presentation. Thank you. Bye bye.